Hello again, my friends. This is the Heather, and this is the Back to Me podcast. And this week's celebrity chat is with the awesome and outstanding Eleonora Andretta. Eleonora is a coach, and she's had such a diverse and interesting life. And she's going to share her journey and her view of all things wellness. Enjoy. Take care. I'll see you soon. Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Sometimes technology makes you crazy. So
it does.
Welcome, my friends. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me, which means Back to You podcast. And of course, I'm Heather. And today I'm super, super excited. Another celebrity chat with another fabulous person. And this is Eleonora Andretta. And your business is called Business Evolution, right?
It is. It is.
And I put in it, you're an amazing author, coach, speaker. It's
so many things.
I know.
That was an amazing introduction, Heather. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. And I was super excited when I first met you to learn that we both got our coaching certifications from the Certified Coaches Federation. Although I think you were back before me at some time. And so you're still coaching.
Yes.
And so now you're focusing more on, tell me a little bit about your coaching evolution.
Yes.
And your business evolution.
Yes, it's all an evolution for me. So you're right. I am with Certified Coaches Federation, just like you, and we didn't know, and that was amazing because I have to say you're the first person I meet like that outside of Certified Coaches Federation, and that was in 2016, which is the year I moved from Italy
to Canada.
To Canada. So that was quite a year.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes. And that was the first sort of evolution for me.
You have, because I saw you speak multiple languages and you've lived in so many places. Are you originally, I guess your name would tell me, wouldn't it? You're originally from Italy.
Eleonora, yes. That's a giveaway. But yes, so I was born and raised there, and raised all my life. So when I moved here, I lived around a few places because I was studying mainly. And I started studying English when I was very little, 6 years old, because my parents were, I guess, pretty forward thinking for the time, especially in Italy. And they said, we want you to speak English and learn the language. And then I guess it was pretty good. I loved it since I was very little.
And it's easier to start when you're that young.
Yes.
Speaking from someone who's been trying to learn French for the last few years.
You see, I mean, how is that going?
I'll just keep at it. That's what I'll say. I'm just going to keep at it.
Exactly. But you are right. It is hard. That's why when people ask me, because I teach English, and then I stayed in the languages. I became an interpreter with German, English, and Italian. So languages, are my love. I really love them. But when people ask me, okay, how can I do that? How can I study? And I always say, take a course. When you're an adult, it's pretty hard to self-discipline is the hardest thing.
Which is why another reason why we're coaches.
Exactly. It is the hardest thing. It's like, you're perfectly right. When somebody says, why do I need a coach? The first thing I say is, well, imagine even losing weight. If you don't have anybody who holds you accountable, then
helps you outside of your regular sphere, right?
Yes.
I know change is hard in general, right? Because as you get older, you get used to a way of being. So when you want to change something, and I read this a long time ago, and I can't remember where it came from, and maybe it came from CCF, but it was like, when you want to make a radical change in your life, there's an unwritten agreement between you and all of your relationships that you are this way and I am this way. So when you try to radically change something, that agreement gets into trouble and that person could subconsciously or unintentionally try to sabotage you changing yourself, because your agreement with them is you will be like this and I will be like this.
Yes.
And maybe it came from the weight loss world. Maybe that's where I heard it. Like when you try to lose weight, people want you to stay the way you are because that's what they know, and they're afraid of things changing. And have you encountered that in your practice, in anything that you've worked on with people?
Many times. You know what, Heather, when you say that, it is about people thinking, wow, you changed, and now I have to work hard to get to know you again. I don't want to do that. But also I think there's a lot of, oh, you're reminding me that I would also have to change, but I don't want to do it. So the same thing happened to me when for a few years, I'd never had any white sugar.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
That was, and when people think white sugar, they go, yeah, I don't take sugar in coffee. And I always say, you know what? Sugar is everywhere.
It's even in sushi.
It's even in sushi.
When I found out it was in sushi, my mind blew.
Yes, it's in like even in pickles, because sugar is a preservative, right? So it's sometimes in prosciutto. It's everywhere. So I'm thinking, yeah, you stay away from that sugar in the coffee. That's not what I mean. I really mean looking at the labels and staying away from it. It could be anywhere, even in pills sometimes, right? Even in anything. So, we had to think about, I was doing my coaching school back then, and in the family would be a little bit hard to say, I'm not having this, I'm not having that. And people will go, are you trying to lose weight? Or are you sick? And so it was really hard, because I think when I said no, maybe to cake or candy, they sort of didn't like it. The reaction was pretty normal, but it was like, oh, so you're strong and I'm not. They sort of didn't like the fact that I was able to say, no, I'm not having any sugar. So they were trying to say, oh, come on, you're not, you're trying to lose weight. What's wrong with you? And I said, you know what, maybe the perfect thing to say is, I'm fine, thank you. Because the first few times you try to justify yourself, changing is hard. You're right. You change and people go, I should do what she's doing, but I don't want to. So I want her to not do that as well.
And because when you change, the relationship changes. They might have to look at themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So they might think you're judging them, which is highly unlikely. You're doing it for yourself, but but then they can start judging themselves, which is, I just had a conversation earlier. It's like, you should just be you, right?
Yes.
And that's a hard thing. That's a hard order sometimes. But I guess that's where, like, when I do my programs, one of my questions is, who is on your team to support you when you're trying to put these things into place, right? And you coach both on a business, you do personal coaching too, right?
Yes.
Do you find a difference between making changes in those two kind of theaters, I guess, personal versus business?
So when I was in Italy, I started my coaching business back there.
Okay.
And I had more like personal coaching, I think. Change was always on the plate, of course. And then here it's both. And I find that change is always difficult, I think, for everybody. It's maybe when it comes to personal change, I think, at least in my experience, it's even sometimes more difficult because you have to take into account so many people. In the workplace, you can be a little bit more selfish maybe and say, well, this is what I would like to become. This is where I would like to go. These are my goals. Right. Whereas if you talk about family, there's a spouse and there's the children and then there's the parents, and you want to be a good person. That element of being a good person, maybe in the workplace, it is there, but not so much, right? Because somebody might say, well, this is for my career. But when it comes to family, you hesitate.
It's different. Like, you don't have to be a good person at work. I've worked for crappy bosses. Right?
So we know that pretty well.
You don't have to be a good person. You just got to get the job done. You get the job done better if you're a good person. But it is true. Family has an expectation of you to be probably bigger than your job environment, to be away. It's so,
and the guilt too. You're more guilty. You feel, oh, I know I should do this for myself, but then I'm supposed to take care of this person and that person, and I can't really do that. So there's less freedom, I guess. I don't know if that's your experience too.
But it's a self-imposed lack of freedom, right? Because when you think about it, we can do whatever we want, really, for the most part. We can choose, but we think that we can't, so we don't. And we come up with many reasons why we can't.
Many excuses, right? I'd love to, but I don't have time.
Yeah, I released in my podcast, I have little short ones, and then I have these longer ones. The longer ones are so much fun, and the little short ones are like 15 minutes. And I did one recently where I said, stop shoulding all over yourself.
It's so true.
Because it's like, I'll have clients who I'll just say, are you doing that? I should do that. That just tells me you're not going to do it. Right away, that's no. Right away, that's I should means no. Right?
Yes. Or what I heard a lot is, I'll try to do that. Let's say that you're going to do that you will do that.
Yeah. That always reminds me of Yoda. You
know, yes.
Do or do not. There is no try. I can't do the Yoda voice.
No, I can't do it there, but he's so cute.
My coach can do the Yoda voice. He can do so many voices. He pulls out these voices when he's talking to me, and it just makes me laugh. To remind me how ridiculous I'm being. Like, even like, yes, I'm a coach, and I help other people, but I need my own coach. This was a conversation I had with him this week because he was coaching me on something that I was stuck on. I'm like, I know the answers. How come I can't do it? He said, that's why people need coaches.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. Like it's about having somebody. We're no different than other people. So you're right. Coaching, that is the heart of coaching, actually, just reaching out for help. I think any coach, if they're a good one, they would say, you know what, I need help.
Yeah.
Which is hard to say sometimes, but
you do expose yourself a little bit, right? But I mean, that's why you find a coach that you feel connected to and safe with. Like, I wouldn't just open up do a Google search, I need a coach, and just pick randomly one. I picked my coach because I'd known him for a long time from afar. And I just said, I want you. Because I knew who he was and how he operated and his philosophies of life and how he worked and his integrity. And that's how I selected him. So, yeah.
And you're right. You are exposed. You need to be yourself. And for me, yeah, this person is a person that she was actually my teacher at the coaching school back in Italy. And we stayed in touch. And then I said, listen, I still need your help now more than ever, because I'm here and I changed everything. And there are times, even when I'm dealing with clients, when I have my own doubts or, am I helping this person in the right way? Am I letting my judgment maybe play a role, which is, that's always been the hardest thing for me. I remember the first lesson was no judge. You can't judge your client. You cannot do that. Otherwise you will be a very bad coach. And
you'll just be a parent.
Exactly. That was even harder than giving up sugar. Sugar was nothing compared to that. Don't judge. Who are you to? So we need coaches as well.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely. And so now that you're here, do you do mostly personal or business, or you're doing kind of a balance of both? And I know you work with Brian on the business side, but
yes. So the meeting with Brian was really great. Now I do more professionals here, because this is what I started doing when I moved here. I called my business evolution, because I said, first of all, because I worked in companies as well, and I saw how much I was not comfortable in that environment, and I was able to see all those toxic dynamics in myself. So I thought, this is where I should focus. And so I called it Business Evolution. Invest in your people, invest in your success. Because my message was, listen, if your team is not motivated, if your team is down, you can't just push them. It's not going to happen. So you need to make sure that they are motivated and focused, because I remember I read a book a few years ago, many years ago, which was called The Customer Comes Second.
Ah,
That was so great for me because I remember I saw the title and I was like, what do you mean the customer comes second? And it was really maybe 20 years ago, but it was already there saying, take care of your team first.
and it was evolutionary probably at the time, right?
Yes.
People would have thought, what do you mean second? The customer's first.
Customers first. I mean, always. And then, of course, it was saying, how do you expect to have happy customers if the people working for you are feeling, they're coming to work and thinking they would rather be somewhere else. So that was pretty good for me. So now I deal mostly with professionals. And the reason why I teamed up with Brian is because we said, listen, why don't we work together and give a female-male perspective, first of all.
Cool. That's cool.
Also, we have differences in what we think about coaching, what we do, where we come from. And I think that's a good thing because we can come from different perspectives and even just, make objections or say, well, why would you do this? Why would you do that? So we were thinking, okay, we should do this together. And we started. So I met him at George Brown College, actually. We're both teaching there. Yes. But it was one of those meetings where you think, you know what, I would really love to work with this person. I think we have the same kind of attitude towards work.
Right.
We laugh a lot. We have terrible sense of humor. So our jokes cannot be told anywhere. But we have a passion for this. I saw that in him. I was like, this guy really loves what he's doing. And so we meet and we kind of bounce ideas off each other. And that's where we're going right now, just developing this business together for companies. And I'm thinking there's two of us, so training teams,
right?
Which is also what the book is about. So
I had two thoughts that were coming. Like, one, I can't wait to have you and Brian both at the same time because I want to hear your jokes.
Okay, some of them you can hear. We'll decide beforehand. Okay.
Okay, and then the second one, because I saw it behind you, I was like, and that must be where your book came from, right? It's beautifully displayed right behind you. So your book, because I know your book is about teams. And so did that evolve out of your customer comes second, or that was just like a seed that planted and grew as you worked?
That's a great metaphor, Heather, actually, because it was that. It was a seed in me. I thought, wow, it is about people. Company is not about the budget. It's not about the money. That comes second. It is about the people working there. And when I worked in these pretty big companies back home, like clothing companies and, worldwide famous, I thought at the beginning it would be great for me to work there because I just, I went out of, university. And then I was sitting in those offices and it was not for me. And what I saw made me think, okay, you know what? I think I could do something to make things better or maybe start thinking about it. So I think it started from there when I saw that book. I remember that. I remember the moment when I saw, okay, the customer comes second. Because I saw it in my first hand. And I called it future me, future teams. Because when they say that there's no I in team, that we're supposed to be, it's never about you. And you know what, Heather, I think it's always about the I. Because in the end, a team is just, to me, a sum of different eyes, of different people. And if you don't resolve your problems at the personal, individual level, you're just going to, your problems will be even bigger in a team. I don't know, something about competition, for instance,
right.
Or feeling, if you're insecure, then you're in a team. And that insecurity is even bigger because you're, seeing other people, what they do, you feel even more insecure about yourself. So for me, it's starting from you, from us, and then being able to work in a team.
And the personalities don't always connect well. And this, just because I talked to Karen earlier, because she works with teams as well, and she was talking about, she does the colors. Do you know the colors?
Yes.
So she works with the colors and helping teams realize that this person gets frustrated by this, and this person gets frustrated by this. It doesn't mean they can't work together, but they need to understand that about each other. So finding a way for teams to understand each other for managers to understand their employees, like I had a boss who, he made me absolutely insane, like to the point where I was going to leave my position. But he didn't understand what I was getting upset about, and I didn't know how to explain it to him.
Yes.
Right. So, do you go in to help them understand how to work together?
Yes.
And is your book? It's not a workbook kind of book. It's like a
Well, it is a little bit of a workbook
okay.
because at the end, that's what I wanted to do. So I summed up all my ideas, and there are 12 steps for moving forward for positive evolution. That's what I called it.
The 12-step process.
Exactly. And then I somebody said, you know what, 12 steps are pretty famous. I didn't even think about it.
Right.
Like, okay.
That's all good.
It works for me. It works for
12 is a good number, obviously.
It is, right? So I said I wanted to sort of have different steps and say it's 12. So it's not about become better, be the better version of yourself. To me, that never spoke to me. I thought, well, that's very rational.
And it seems too like insubstantial, right? It's like be a better person. What does that mean?
Okay.
Like, does that mean I don't know, help old ladies cross the road? Like, what does that mean?
Exactly. And it's very easy. Just like when people say, oh, stay positive or think positive. What does that even mean? And how do I start?
That's not helpful for some people. That makes it worse for them.
So that's why that coach that I had back in Italy, she was actually the director of the school. She was the first person to actually tell me how to do things in a better way about myself and improve my life in a practical way. So I said, okay, I'd like to do the same thing in my, just sharing my thoughts. And I started with these steps. So our idea is to do that kind of training. So, okay, how do I do it? Just hearing, become a better person. You need to believe in yourself. Okay, we've had enough of that.
Right.
Right. But what you said
very
is
Walt Disney.
Yes.
Right. It's like,
where do I start?
Yeah.
When people say, oh, you should love each other. And you're thinking, well, really? How come I have all this anger though?
Yeah.
How come I can't love people or I'm angry? Even if I read how bad anger is. Okay. And then I close my book and I'm angry again. So my book you're right. It is a workbook because at the end of each chapter, there is some kind of exercise. Write this down, do that. Step 1, step 2.
Do teams go through it together or does a person go through it?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both, actually. So the book is, just individual. So it could be work that you do on your own, like a diary, like a journal. And with teams, with Brian, you said this thing about the colors. And we are investigating DISC assessment. We think it's really interesting. And you're right. So the only thing is that you should be careful about labeling, and it's not that. You're right. It is about, I don't need to label this person, but at least I know.
Right.
These reactions come with the package. At least I know it's not because they're bad or evil.
Right.
We
know there is evil in the world, but it's usually not your coworkers.
Exactly. I think, like you said, it helps, right? It helps just to say, okay, this person in this situation, I don't know, maybe in a meeting, they will want to prevail a little bit, to speak a little bit longer, because fine. I just know that it's okay. That's their way of dealing with stress, probably. So hopefully this thing would be sort of something that we do at the beginning.
Right.
Of when you do briefing with teams and say, well, let's start from this. I think these tests are helpful, but they have to be, you're right, used well.
Well, and people can sometimes feel like it puts them into a box. The very first one I ever remember taking, and I was in my early 20s, was the Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm. I heard about that.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know why, maybe it was just my manager, the department head thought it was a cool thing. And I don't know how it helped, actually, because I don't know what they did with it afterwards. Maybe it helps the manager understand the team a little better. I could have just been too young at the time to recognize what the heck. Not that being
Maybe.
young, not that being young means you can't understand. I think I just didn't really care, actually.
You had other
To be
things to,
completely honest,
to
to
think
be
about.
completely honest, I lived in Halifax, and my thought was like, when is Saturday night so I can go to the pub, kind of thing, right?
How
So,
I couldn't blame you. So you're like, what is this test? Okay, let me do this. Let me fill out the form.
but it was interesting to me in that it held up something to, like, almost held up like a, this is you. Did you know that, from the outside? And I was kind of went, really?
Hmm.
Because I'd never really looked at myself before, right? Because you're in your
Yes,
20s, everything is outwards for the most part. So it's interesting to give someone a mirror to reflect back potentially. But and I've done the
exactly.
disc. I've done the disc. I've done, at this point in my life, I've probably done a whole pile of them, and
Then how?
half of
Did
them
you
are
do
gone.
disc on yourself as well? Because I
Yeah.
did that too.
Yes, I did disc on myself, and I thought, okay, that's interesting.
You're like,
But it was, again, it was like, what am I going to do with that information? I'm just going to file it for now, right?
mhm.
Um,
And it is about, you're right, not labeling. And also, I don't know if you know about the 5 wounds. This is something else that is along these lines.
oh, I don't know this one.
Her name is Lise Bourbeau, and I think she's Canadian, but we studied her in Italy, these 5 wounds. So again, it's abandonment, injustice, like 5 wounds that sort of define your personality. But the great thing is that she always told us it's not about labeling people. You could be a certain wound at work and then a different wound at home. And it's the same with DISC. So it is about staying away from labeling. Maybe at work, for instance, the wound of injustice is a person that is really well organized. And then maybe at home, they're abandonment. They're the people who need to be with everybody all the time. They need somebody else. So I think it has to help us understand each other, not say, oh, you're like this. So,
Yeah, and it is true that you are different people in different situations, and sometimes we don't allow for that
mhm.
in interactions. So, me sitting at home watching TV with my husband is probably not the same person as me, or maybe it is the same person. I don't know.
Now
Well,
that I think about it.
now that I think about it, but it's taken me a long time to be this person, right? Because
Yes.
when I was an accountant, like, I spent 15 years in the corporate world as an accountant. I was not the person as an accountant at the beginning, especially as I am now. Later on, I did kind of evolve into that person, which is why I ended up leaving. A very funny story. I used to be
Hmm.
down the hall from the mailroom of this corporation, and the mail guy would every day stop and talk to me. And he said I was like the most interesting accountant he'd ever met. And
Oh,
people thought I was the HR department. Like, they didn't realize I was in the accounting department. And it was because I had a lava lamp, and
oh, that
I would,
okay. I get why he said interesting. He used the word interesting.
yeah. And also I would have a conversation with him. Like, I had time for him. I would have, like, he was trying to be a filmmaker, even though he worked in the mailroom. So he would stop on his mail route and drop my mail and tell me about his latest film project. And I was interested, and we would have a conversation. But I don't know that
Mhm.
everybody else would just say, oh, he's the mail guy, and just ignore
Just
him.
not even, yeah. And you still remember these things years, after. So it means the people person was always there. But were you a good accountant as well?
Yeah, I
So you
was.
see, you see. I mean, you could be both. You had your lamp and the salt lamp probably, and I don't know, incense in the room.
If I would have
But
been allowed to, I would have.
okay, but they probably said no, no
Yeah,
incense.
no sense in the office.
I know, but that's living proof that you can be. We're going back to what you said earlier. Sometimes people are just taken aback because, oh, you're not the stereotypical this or that, so something is off. It doesn't have to be
And
off.
you don't have to fit into one of the, they are this box, right? People are more than a
Mhm.
definition. like the disc profile says I'm one thing. I can't actually remember what the disc profile said.
Mhm.
My Myers-Briggs says this thing, the colors say I'm this thing. They're all true and they're all not true. Right?
Yes. And also there's all 4 of them anyway, or even with the 5 wounds, there's all 5 in us, except they come out in different situations. So that's something that we need to remind people, and even ourselves, because with these tests, it's very easy to say, okay, you're this, you're that, but it's not that simple, which is
No.
also what makes us interesting as human beings.
Oh my gosh, imagine if we could fit all into a box, then we'd be boring as heck.
No.
But also, then they wouldn't need any help figuring things out.
Exactly. And here we are. So isn't it an exciting job? This
It is an
coaching
amazing
thing.
job. And
It's a journey.
it's helping people find their way. Like the most exciting thing for me, because I also teach kayaking of all things. And the most exciting thing for me is always when you see a realization and they're like, this light comes on, like literally they look lit up and you're like, okay, they just got it. Something just shifted.
Yes.
And something has freed up energy for them. And they're on their road to something new and exciting. And that's always what makes me super excited. Like that's probably why I teach. So, because I teach kayaking, I teach yoga.
Yes.
I teach so many things. It's like I see lights pinging on and I get super excited. And I said to somebody recently on a podcast, say I'm super selfish because I do it because it makes me feel really good.
I know, but but you can be selfish in this because you're helping other people, so we're allowed to be selfish. But I get what you're saying. It's what moves me is helping people make progress. I also love teaching, and my master's degree is in interpreting and translation, which is about allowing people to communicate, being in the middle, like in meetings, different languages. I'm here to help you understand each other. So that was languages, but it was still bridging different worlds and making sure that there was no incomprehension, there was no misunderstanding. So it's still, I think, the same mission, except in different levels. So at first I thought, oh, it's a different thing, but it's not, because I'm not. It's connecting people anyway, with themselves, with each other, in the team, with languages, with translations. Just making it very, very difficult for people not to understand each other. So that was sort of.
You're not going to start doing you have no excuses.
No, you can do that. And it's. I remember. You know what? At CCF, they were always telling me, it's a great community, by the way, because they keep you updated, and there's always somebody that you can talk to, and that's always great. And they mentioned this when I did the course. It was, you can have all the certificates that you want, and you can go to school for coaching, whatever. But if you don't really, honestly, genuinely care for people, you will not be able to do this job. So I think that's why it's great. You can't just improvise and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to care about people today.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Let me put on my caring hat.
Yes.
And it is true, that community, like, because I am still really entrenched heavily in that community, like I we meet as mastermind groups quite regularly. And there's little pockets of us that meet together and support each other. And, I'll message one of them and say, hey, because one of them has a really good announcer voice. Hey, I need a voiceover for a TikTok. Can you make me one?
So you will use the voice.
And it comes the next day. It's like, so, and that is my support group, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that helps me support me as I'm on my journey. And then you and I are supporting people on their journey. And so when you're working with companies, is it like a project, or is it for an extended period of time, or do you just come in, poof, and I don't know how to describe it.
It's a different process. So of course, first of all, we try to understand what the needs are. So of course we have our own packages, and what we really come up with, have our own ideas about what needs to be done. But there's always, the initial meeting where we assess the needs. And we have different workshops. We do lunch and learn, for instance, just to introduce what we do. And then, of course, depending on what the company wants, we might have half a day, 2 days, 3 days. Usually it's like that. And then, of course, it was different. There was the in-person thing, the online thing. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And now there's so many other things that are coming up. People going back to work. So we're also thinking about, we're seeing this, that, just not being used to working together anymore, or just not wanting to go back.
I know have jobs that got new jobs during the pandemic and have never actually met their team.
Yes.
So that'll be so interesting for people when they actually, there's the whole issue of being comfortable being with people again. But what if you have never met the people you work with?
Yes. I was working with somebody in this company, and he was actually coming from Asia. So totally different world. Now he lives here, but he's still working online. And he really, I think he needed the workplace culture a lot more. So he was asking for, time management, and also working on his presentation skills. So this is also something that I do that comes from my background, and speaking skills. But he said, it's hard for me because I have all these meetings, and sometimes I feel like I don't know these people. And it was even harder because if you were in person and then you went online, but you still met the people beforehand. But he just was hired from Asia, came here, everything on Zoom, never met anybody, but they were criticizing his public speaking, presentation skills. So he was really worrying a lot. And maybe I thought, what, if he went in and just had coffee with these people, he would know that they're also about something else, not just the work. But that added a lot of stress.
Right.
Because he didn't know what he was dealing with. Yeah,
and he doesn't know if he's feeling criticized, he doesn't know where that's coming from. Maybe it's just like a helpful suggestion, not a "you're not good enough." He
was worrying so much. Oh, the feedback is this, that I speak for too long, and I'm like, okay, but probably, like you said, if it had been a conversation in any room, it would have been okay. I have to improve that. But he was really stressing out. So
wow,
lots of changes happening. Yes. He wanted also to make a good impression, right? He was a new hire and he was operations manager or something. So people are dealing with a lot.
Yeah. And I think as we start to transition out of it, we're going to have more things are going to come up. I was asking about how the working with companies, because I remember when I was in corporate, we had our whole team went away. This was back in the day, went away to a place for 4 days to work together on succession planning or something like this, some kind of leadership team. How do we work together? How do we plan?
Like a retreat.
And we had a person who came, and it was their program that we were implementing. That was another one of those personality test things we did. It was these deck of cards with a tree on the front. That's all I remember.
So you did do a lot of these tests.
I did.
You've been assessed all your life.
And yet I still am working on me.
You're thinking, what? Okay. And you have people saying,
learn new things every day. I still learn new things every day. It's like you peel off a layer. You're like, what is that? It was from Shrek, the movie,
cartoon. Yes.
Where it's, the donkey Shrek said something about layers, and Shrek said, "I'm an onion," and he's peeling layers, and Shrek and the donkey is like, "Cake. Think of layer cake, not onions. Onions stink."
It's much better. Layer cake.
I have so many layers. I just keep peeling them off. But the more you know, the more you know.
Yes.
Right. I mean, part of my personality is I'm just going to keep figuring out what I can continually learn and find new things and mine. Because the more I know me, I think the more I know myself, the easier it is for me to understand other people, and the better I can help them.
And you're right. It's we're constantly changing. And I think what you said earlier, the self-imposed non-freedom,
Yeah.
I think certain people think, okay, this is who I am. But sometimes, Heather, like I wake up in the morning and I feel like a totally different person. I want to do something else. And I think that's great. Do they say that we change? I heard it somewhere. Maybe you know, because you've been assessed many more times than me, so you probably know this. Do they say that we change every 7 years? Does that ring a bell?
They say that all the cells in your body are replaced every 7 years.
You see, there was a 7 years somewhere.
There is. But if you take that as, we are, like, all of our cells keep replacing, why wouldn't our, like, part of, now, they say your brain cells are permanent, which they've also discovered is wrong because of neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. You can rewire your brain to, associate different ideas with different thoughts. Like, you can change how your wiring of your brain is. So I don't know if that follows a 7-year cycle or if that just follows a determination cycle of I've got to keep doing this and develop a new rut in the road. Let's get out of this one. But you can't, like, I listen to so many podcasts as well. And there's a podcast gentleman that I listen to who he said, you can change your brain overnight if you know how to do it. You can switch it.
And this is something fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
When this reminds me that, that now that you mentioned neuroplasticity, that's also a great thing for us coaches because people have no excuse for saying, oh, I can't change. This is who I am. And when I was doing this coaching school back home, we also delved into Neuro Training. So this guy is called Andrew Verity, and he just died a couple of weeks ago, by the way. Oh. So he was basically saying, you know what, you just need training, changing habits and creating new pathways, whatever. So when I wrote my book, I asked this neurosurgeon here in Toronto. He's Italian, by the way, Italian background, but he's been here for many years. I said, listen, can we change anything that we want with the right training? So repetition of action. So he said, yes. So just like you repeat the same gestures to learn how to play the guitar,
right?
And then it develops through the brain and this becomes automatic. He says the pathways are the same for if you want to be more patient or more positive or less angry. So he said they are the same circuits. So we don't have any excuses to say, no, I can't change. This is me. Well, you can.
Sorry, we're not taking that excuse anymore.
Exactly. Which is great. And it's bad news and good news at the same time. You're right, because it's great when you can say, no, I'm set in my ways. There's no way. But actually, even science says that you can rewire a brain, like you said.
Yeah.
So what's your excuse now?
I don't want to.
Exactly.
Although some people, like, going all the way back to the beginning, it's a change. So imagine you did decide to be a different way and you changed maybe overnight. I am now going to be this way. And then you got there, you're like, oh, I don't like this, actually. I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. People really don't like to make mistakes. So it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, right? So if I change, what if I don't like it? What if I made a mistake? Can I go back? What if I'm stuck there? Oh my God.
Yes, exactly.
What if I move to a new country and it's awful?
That was a thought I had. Like, what if they don't like me? What if nobody likes me there? But you're right. And also, if
it's very schoolyard, right? Very schoolyard. Going to school. What if they don't like me?
What if they don't like me? What if the teachers don't like me? And it's also, if you don't change, you sort of expect other people to adjust to you. That's also great. People love that, right? You can say, what you have to do because I don't like it. Whereas if you're more adaptable and you're thinking that you can change, you cannot boss anybody around saying, well, don't do this because it hurts me. Well, you can change. And
yeah.
But that's the biggest fear. They say the biggest fear in everybody's life is change. Oh, public speaking as well.
I was going to say, isn't it public speaking?
It's public speaking. You're right. You're right. Is public speaking change? No, not really.
No. But if you get up in public speak and don't die, you realize, oh, it's not that scary. The second one might be spiders or it might be change. I'm not sure which.
Yes, maybe spiders.
Maybe
It's
spiders.
pretty bad.
I know.
But it is linked to you're right, not the fear of what's beyond there. What if it's worse? I might as well stay here. So fighting the comfort zone.
Right.
We're doing that, I guess, all our lives. Even
And you see all these memes all the time, change is outside the comfort zone.
yes.
It's like Tim the Toolman Taylor. It's like, everything has to be this very, I was having a conversation with somebody, this masculine, like action energy.
Yes.
So change doesn't have to be that.
And you're right. Even, when you, maybe people want change and maybe, they can't even give up their daily coffee,
Right.
but they would like a major change to happen. And I'm thinking, wow, change stems from change. This is something that I wrote in the book as well. It was like, you know what, if you want to change, you can't, expect something to change, but stay the same, never change any habit, anything in your life, but you want something positive to happen. So it is about the comfort zone as well. And when I moved.
Yeah, that's when, sorry, you go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, when I moved, it was a huge change and people were saying, are you sure why you're doing this? And I thought, you know what if it doesn't work? And I said, well, how can I know? But if I hadn't done the coaching school and all that journey with Neuro Training, with the work, I will always thank those people. That's why when I got here, I said, Certified Coaches Federation. Then I met Derek and I said, okay, this is a community I want to be a part of because I know that it means a lot. It does make a difference.
It's funny that you say that about when you moved. So I was born and raised in Ontario and I was moving to Nova Scotia. And I remember, I think it was my grandmother. No, it was my mother or my grandmother said, what if you get trapped there? And I was in the same country. Wow. I mean, it's only a 17, 18-hour drive. So it's like a 2-hour flight. What if you get trapped there? I was like, where do you think I'm going? I was like,
some faraway country with,
I don't know, like no international airports, yes. Like no trains, no cars. Do you think I'm going to, I think maybe they thought I was going to a fishing village that could only be accessed by a fishing boat or something. But I'm like, it's a major international city, Mom. Like,
yes, I'm not.
If you're listening, my mom might listen. Like, do you even remember telling me that, Mom? Who listens to your podcast? Well, for sure, your mom will.
Yes, exactly. I think she will remember, though, telling you that.
But it was just such a funny thing to say.
But it was still change, right? For you, for your life, it was big change.
Like moving because I'd always lived in the same province. Only ever lived an hour from my parents. That was as far as I'd ever been. Suddenly I was going to be a day away. It's like, what do you mean? What if you don't like it? Well, then I'll come home.
I'll just get a plane.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. But it can be scary anyway, whether it's big or small. It really depends on where you are in your life journey.
Yeah. Small changes can be scary too, right? It can be scary to try and get off sugar.
Yes.
I can't. There's no such thing as can't. I have not chosen to do that yet.
So it was a very interesting experience, especially for the reactions of other people. Like you said, maybe they were saying, "Oh, I should do that too," but I will not. And I was like, I didn't judge you. Why? But they felt
they judged themselves.
Yes, they judged themselves. And I said, I didn't say that you have to do this. I just said I don't want it. But that's a big change too. And but then with food, it's very different. Like food, comfort food, and food is the source of many.
And it's still a habit.
Yes.
Right. You still, because I know my food habits. My food habit after dinner is a cup of tea and chocolate.
What kind of chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Okay, I like that.
Yes, dark chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I've recognized that I'll sit down and I'm like, oh, and I'll just automatically feel like it's time for my cup of tea, and it's herbal tea. But I'm like, am I choosing this, or am I habitually doing this?
Yes.
Right.
And they say, because we were talking about this 7 years that this cells, does it take like 6 months for a habit? Like we love our habits, or 6 months for a habit to?
There's
Is it 6
different
months?
numbers. Some people say like 90 days. There's like a range because not everybody's going to be the same. And it depends on how ingrained it is. And it depends on how aware you are of the triggers of your habit. So it can take 6 months to change a habit. And I've read a lot of books, like the Atomic Habits one, and I read a book called Triggers, actually. And part of it is recognizing the thing that trips off your habit.
Yes.
And often you're doing your habit before you recognize that you're doing it. I will be, with my chocolate in my tea. I'm like, how did that happen?
How did I get here?
It's like when you drive home, because when you're first learning to drive, frontal brain is like learning, like click that, especially if you drive a standard, push this, click this, do this, do this, do this. But now, once you do it and it's patterned in your brain, like the guitar, you just do it. You don't think about it.
Yep.
And then you might get to the point, which is not a good thing, is you can get home from work and go, how did I get here? Because of the habit, right? So
you don't even remember the drive. You don't even remember driving past a certain thing. It's amazing.
So and our brains are wired to conserve calories because, we theoretically evolved on the savannah and food was scarce. So all that thinking takes brain energy and burns calories. So our brains don't want to burn calories. So they just store patterns.
Yes.
So to change a pattern takes a little brain calorie burning. If you want to lose weight, just think more.
Exactly.
But it's like you have to catch the trigger before you activate the pattern. So you
breaking that cycle.
Yeah, recognizing what it is, and then having a pattern to break it, and it can be done. Like it can be done. Short fasts, like it's not a competition to say who can break their pattern faster, right?
No, exactly.
Everybody's got their own journey to take to do it. There's things that can help you. There's lots of things that can help you. I mean, I listen to podcasts about all of this stuff constantly. Because I walk a lot in the neighborhood, and that's where I
have them on, and what? Yes,
it's like learning.
Yes,
that's one of my habits.
That's your meditation, probably.
Yeah, right.
It is mindfulness at the end of the day, and talking about the brain. I also have a
separate meditation seated practice where it's just like quiet. I mean, you can never stop your thoughts, but you can watch them. They're very interesting to watch if you can practice it enough. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for 18 years. So I've been actually probably a practicing meditator for about 20. And I'm only, I'm only 25, but I'm kidding.
Oh, I thought you were 26. I'm sorry.
I know. Sorry. It's okay.
I know. It's just a year. I mean, but
it's just a number.
Yeah, it's just a number.
It doesn't matter. But it
meditation
is interesting.
Works.
Yeah, meditation is a big thing. And I had this friend once who I said, and I wasn't a meditator at the time, but he habitually, every time I went out with him, we were just friends, he would have a new girlfriend. And I would say, one day I said, how come you don't just be single for a little while? And he said, because I don't like to spend time with myself. And I thought that's a huge one, realization for him, but two, how sad is that?
Yes. And you know this,
just I still think about that to this day, and that was like 30 years ago he said that to me, and I was just like, wow, like
that says a lot of things.
What would happen if you sat, because I think a lot of people avoid meditation because you're going to sit and listen to the inside of your head.
Yes. And now that you mentioned that, my mom used to tell me that since I was very little. She said, if you can't be on your own, you'll never be able to get along with other people. So she said, you have to be able to be on your own. And I remember that she told me when I was little, I didn't really get it, but then she kept saying it to me. And then I understood. Some people are just terrified of not being, or they need to have people over all the time. And I became, I think, pretty good at, not pretty good, but I mean, it's something that I needed to do, the meditation thing, I think in the past maybe 5 years. And now I'm also doing some breath work on Saturday mornings.
Cool. Do you have a breath coach, or are you just learning it?
No, I'm just going to this gym with this guy who's really good. And because I knew that it was something that had to be done with a coach. We were saying that earlier, right? And
I interviewed a breath coach a few months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's
amazing.
It's amazing. And it changes my mood because I go on Saturday mornings. Then for the rest of the week, I saw the difference. I really saw the difference between when I didn't go and now that I'm going. And even with Neuro Training, we had exercises that we did, massaging the different points. So it's also about not just understanding things here.
Right. It's like not all intellectual.
That helps, knowing, the habits. But then you go home and you go, okay, what do I do now? So that whole, like you said, the whole dimension of being with your thoughts, and maybe sometimes just observing them, like you said, or just letting them run through you instead of saying, I don't want them. That's not going to work. Probably you just let them pass. And
if you resist it, it'll persist. They say,
yes.
What you resist persists. And it's so true. So it's like, just let it go by like a cloud.
And even during the breath work, oh my God, all sorts of things come up. And I'm guessing it's one of those things that really, so I was warned, it's work. He said, it's called work for a reason. It's not just breathing, and it's work. And then there's different stages. And once you start doing these things, I think you kind of feel the need to keep on doing them because you see the difference even in clarity. Or, I mean, you're a yoga instructor. I guess.
Once you get past the beginning, like I can't do it, and you start to feel it, then you're like, oh my gosh. It's even like, so, because I'm also a massage therapist still, registered massage therapist. I've had people who will come to me as adults, never having had a massage. This happened to me last week.
Really?
Someone came for their first massage ever, and they got up, they're like, oh my God, why did I wait?
Where have you been all my life?
Right? So sometimes the things that we're afraid to try will end up being why did I resist that for so long? Why did, and this, I mean, my podcast is all wellness. It's like, why did I resist feeling better for so long?
Yes. And it's interesting you say so, because the person who told me to do this breath work was the person I would never expected to tell me this. My husband.
Well,
he's the kind of guy, he's very driven and he works and everything. And then he started going to this. And I was like, where are you going? I'm trying a few things. And then he said, you should come too. And because we do this session at the end of the breath work, we say what we're thankful for. And last time I said, well, I'm thankful for my husband because he told me about this. And I would never have imagined that he would have chosen that thing. So I think it works if you just let it happen, or if you give yourself the choice, be open.
So my philosophy of life is to be curious. I didn't actually work for this man. I would just always talk to him in the kitchen at work. And he was the one who took me to my first yoga class. He was a senior vice president. And he said, I've been going to this yoga studio. Would you like to come? And I said, sure. Why not?
Why not?
And he's told me at one point, it was when I was leaving the corporation, he came and he said, I'm so excited for you. Like everybody else thought I was crazy. He said, I'm so excited for you. He said, all through my career, every time something came up, all I would say was, that's interesting. Tell me more. And that's how his career had progressed. And he had always been in something interesting, because he would always say, if it was interesting, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And I thought,
that's great.
That's a brilliant way to look at life. Like, don't say no.
Why not? Just why not instead of no?
Why not? Tell me about it. I'm curious. Tell me about it.
It's interesting. It's even just a couple of words.
You can say no if you find out about it and you go, maybe that's not for me. It's interesting though. But I know someone who would like it. Let me send them over to you.
That's a good thing too, like connecting someone.
Right?
But you're right, like sort of questioning, is my no a no because I don't know, I cannot do it, or is it just a no because I want to stay in my comfort zone and not discover anything new?
Because at the age of 2, I learned how to say no, and I haven't stopped.
Exactly, because it's a normal reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, so true.
And
do you have any programs coming up for people? Do you have stuff happening? Or where's your book at? It's on Amazon.
So
right?
my book is on Amazon, and now we're preparing workshops on the book. So I really want to make sure that they become something practical that we can do. So I usually post everything on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn profile, and we're updating our programs, our workshops, and the content that we would like to do. So yeah. So
awesome. Well, I'm going to include like all the links to find you, the link to your book. All roads lead to Eleonora.
Thank you. I'm also discussing a show actually on that channel about these things. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
And even after I post it, if something else comes up, you can just post in there. It's new, like updates of things that are happening, and potentially people are going to post questions. So I'll make sure I tag you. And
that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah. Do you have any final last wisdom for people?
Final last words.
Famous last words? No.
Famous last words. I think for me, it would be, especially now, embrace change in the real sense. Just don't be afraid. Just embrace it, because you never know what will happen. And also, just because you don't understand it now, maybe will be clearer in a couple of years, but just embrace whatever is coming your way. Opportunities are everywhere, even when we think they're not there. So my suggestion would be just embrace it and be curious to see what's out there.
That's awesome. And you just reminded me, one of the podcasts I listened to, his mantra is, everything is, always has been, and always will be fine. Right? So
that's right.
So such true words from you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so excited because I want you and Brian on for sure.
Yes, we're coming very soon with our humor. Yes. So get ready.
Bring the jokes. If it's explicit, I can just mark it in the podcast.
Sure.
Potential swear words.
We'll just cover them with subtitles. Don't worry.
Right. And yes, if anybody's looking for Eleonora, all of the information will be there, and definitely reach out to her, because I know that she's an amazing coach and she will help you be your best version of you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So nice. Thank you for having me.
Much. Take
Ciao.
care.
Thank you. Take care.
Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Just give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.